began to go downhill rapidly.
And honestly, that sounds brutal.
One day, he combined the two.
Golf ball the right way.
John Daly gave golf one of its greatest miracles, but behind the cheers, people close to him started whispering that he was a drunk who could not be saved. In 1991, nobody knew his name. He was the 9th alternate at the PGA Championship. That means 8 other golfers had to drop out just for him to even get a tee time. He drove through the night to make it in time. Then he grabbed the biggest driver in the game and swung as hard as he could every single time. People started calling it grip it and rip it. He won the whole tournament. A nobody from Arkansas became a legend in 4 days, and golf has never fully recovered from the shock of it. And as Daly's story starts to turn darker, use the hype feature and give this video some hype, because this is where the legend starts to become a warning. Fans loved him instantly. He looked like a regular guy. He was not skinny or polished like the other players on tour. He smoked between shots. He joked around with the crowd. He hit the ball further than anyone had ever seen a human being hit it. But almost as fast as the fame arrived, the drinking arrived right alongside it, and it never really left. 7 legends of golf watched Daly up close for years. Tiger Woods, Butch Harmon, Fuzzy Zoeller, Arnold Palmer, Nick Faldo, Fred Couples, Jack Nicklaus. Each one saw a different piece of the same sad puzzle. Put together, their stories try to answer one hard question. Why could a man with so much raw talent never stop drinking long enough to become the best golfer alive? Tiger Woods trained like a machine. He lifted weights before sunrise. He ran. He built his entire life around discipline and structure. Daly did not live that way at all. In 2004, at a tournament called the Target World Challenge, Tiger was getting ready to head to the gym for a second workout of the day. Daly saw him walking off and told him to skip it. "Come have a beer instead," he said, and swap some stories like normal people do. Tiger said no, but he told Daly something that stuck with a lot of people who heard it later. He said if he had Daly's raw talent, he would probably live the exact same easy way. That line explains more than it seems to on the surface. Daly's gift was so enormous that it hid the damage for years longer than it should have. Most golfers who partied hard and skipped practice the way Daly did would fall apart within a season or two. Daly could still crush the ball further than almost anyone else on the tour, even half broken from the night before. His talent protected him from the one thing that usually forces people to change their ways: consequences. Because his swing kept working through the damage, his mind never had to face the truth early enough for it to actually matter. Butch Harmon coached some of the greatest players who ever picked up a club, including Tiger himself and the legendary Greg Norman. In 2008, Harmon agreed to take Daly on as a student, hoping his experience could finally reach him. It did not last long. During a rain delay at a tournament called the PGA Championship, Daly did not spend the downtime studying his swing or resting his body. He went and sat in a corporate Hooters tent and drank for hours while the rest of the field waited out the weather. Harmon had seen enough by then. He walked away from the job and told the world exactly why in blunt terms. He said Daly cared more about getting drunk than he ever cared about getting better. That is a brutal thing for a coach to say about a player in public. But Harmon was not trying to be cruel about it. He was trying to be honest, and honesty was something Daly rarely heard from the people around him. Harmon noticed a clear pattern repeating itself. Daly would work hard for a short stretch and look genuinely sharp again. Then one bad round, one hard week, one piece of criticism in the press, and he would vanish right back into the bottle like clockwork. Harmon believed Daly blamed everyone else for his problems instead of himself, the media, his relationships, his critics, anyone but the man in the mirror. That refusal to look inward kept the exact same cycle spinning year after wasted year. Fuzzy Zoeller was one of Daly's very closest friends anywhere on tour, and their friendship shows something darker about the world Daly was living inside of every single week. One night at Augusta National, after drinking together from Tuesday afternoon straight into Wednesday morning, Zoeller made Daly a wager, $150,000 that Daly would not live to see his 50th birthday. It sounds like a joke between two old buddies, the kind of thing friends say to each other and forget by morning. It was not really a joke underneath the surface. It was a group of grown men watching a friend slowly hurt himself in plain sight, and turning that pain into entertainment instead of stepping in to stop it. When Daly actually did turn 50 in 2016, he laughed about collecting the money in Fuzzy's own brand of vodka. Even his survival became a punchline built around alcohol. His friends were never blind to the danger he was living in. They just made peace with it as part of the show he put on for everyone else. And that quiet peace is exactly what allowed the wild man act to keep running long after it should have ended. Arnold Palmer was the man who built modern professional golf into something clean, respected, and profitable for everyone involved. He wrote daily letters, real, personal, handwritten letters, urging him to get serious help and start living like the champion he had already proven he could be. Palmer was not only worried about Daly's health, he was worried about what Daly's chaos said about the sport. Palmer had spent his entire life building up from nothing. Daly never fully answered that call, no matter how many times it came. Palmer saw a young man who loved being the rebel, the outsider, the guy who refused to play by any country club rules. That image made Daly wildly popular with everyday fans who felt like he was one of them. But it also became a permanent excuse. Being the wild man meant Daly never had to grow into the full responsibility that came bundled with being a major champion. He wanted the crowd's love without accepting the discipline that Palmer believed should always come attached to it. Nick Faldo won 6 full major championships by being almost robotic in his focus and preparation. He watched Daly from the opposite side of that same coin and came to a sharp, uncomfortable conclusion. He believed Daly's drinking was not simply weakness, it was protection. If Daly played poorly, people quietly blamed the lifestyle instead of his ability. If Daly played brilliantly, like he did while winning the 1995 Open Championship, the win became even more legendary because he somehow pulled it off while barely holding everything together. Either way, Daly never had to face the scariest question hiding underneath all of it. How good could he actually be if he trained, prepared, and competed completely sober, with absolutely nothing left to blame if it all went wrong? Faldo believed Daly was quietly terrified of that answer, so alcohol handed him a permanent excuse to never fully find out for certain. Fred Couples played alongside Daly many times over the years and saw something the other legends rarely talked about as openly: the physical toll underneath it all. At the 1998 Greater Vancouver Open, Couples watched Daly's hands shake uncontrollably right there on the greens in front of everyone. This was not a simple hangover shake. These were withdrawal tremors, the kind that happen when a body has already become physically dependent on alcohol just to function like normal. By this point in his career, Daly's drinking had crossed a serious line. It was no longer only about bad choices made the night before a round. His own nervous system needed alcohol just to feel steady enough to stand still. Couples understood that playing golf sober, at that particular stage, was not simply hard for his friend. It was physically painful in a real medical sense. That is a very different kind of problem than laziness or weak discipline, and it showed exactly how far things had already gone by 1998. Jack Nicklaus is remembered as the calmest, most controlled mind that the sport has ever produced. He watched Daly's game closely and saw something that fit perfectly with everything the other legends were already saying. Grip it and rip it was never just a swing style, it was Daly's entire personality on public display. Swing after swing, no hesitation whatsoever, no patience. Just raw emotion swinging as hard as it possibly could. Every single time, win or lose. Nicklaus believed real championship golf takes days of quiet, controlled, patient thinking. Daly lived on huge emotional highs and crushing emotional lows, with almost nothing steady sitting in between the two extremes. Alcohol became his crude, clumsy tool for calming that constant storm inside his own head. The tragedy, according to Nicklaus, is that the very thing Daly used to feel calm in the moment was the exact same thing slowly destroying the clear thinking he needed most out on the course. None of this happened in a vacuum, and it did not start the day he turned professional. Daly grew up with an abusive, alcoholic father, and he started drinking himself somewhere between the ages of 8 and 10 years old. That kind of beginning leaves deep roots that do not simply go away because a person becomes famous. He also walked straight into a polished, wealthy golf world as a rough kid from Arkansas who did not fit the mold anywhere he looked. He felt like an outsider standing inside his own sport, at his own tournaments. The tour itself did not exactly help him find a better path. Sponsors and tournament directors kept handing Daly new chances because he sold tickets and grabbed headlines wherever he showed up. Galleries at his events swelled far past normal tournament crowds because fans wanted to watch a man who felt like one of their own out there swinging without fear. His chaos made real money for other people. So other people kept quietly looking the other way instead of stepping in early, when it might have actually mattered. These are genuine reasons behind his addiction, and they deserve real understanding rather than mockery. But they are not a full excuse for everything that followed. Plenty of people carry hard childhoods without destroying every single chance they are ever given. And Daly was given more chances than almost anyone else in the sport's entire history, from sponsors, from tournament officials, and from fans who kept showing up no matter what he did. The timeline shows exactly how much all those chances ended up costing him. Back in college at Arkansas, his talent was already completely obvious, but so was the heavy binge drinking and the constant clashes with his coaches and teachers. Nobody suspended him for long because he was simply too good to lose from the team. He turned professional, still carrying that same pattern with him, and it never really left. Then came 1991, and the miracle win that changed his life overnight, along with the PGA Tour naming him Rookie of the Year. Behind that success, he was already being hospitalized more than once for acute alcohol poisoning during quiet off weeks that fans never heard about. 2 years later, after a painful string of public incidents, he checked into the Betty Ford Center for real treatment. For a while, it actually seemed to work. He won the Bell South Classic in 1994. During this stretch, he leaned hard on diet soda, fast food, and cigarettes to fill the space where alcohol used to be, and he battled intense sugar cravings almost every single day. Then in 1995, sober and sharply focused, he won the Open Championship at St. Andrews in a playoff. It looked exactly like the turnaround everyone had been hoping for since 1991, and the media celebrated him as a man who had finally beaten it. It did not last very long at all. By 1996 and 1997, he had relapsed completely, missing cuts and walking off the course mid-round in front of stunned crowds. Wilson and Reebok both dropped him as a sponsor because of it. In 1998, at that tournament in Vancouver, his hands shook so badly on live television that everyone watching could see something serious was deeply wrong. Callaway signed him anyway with strict written rules about staying sober built right into the contract. He broke those rules too, just like the ones before them. Through the early 2000s, he kept playing on special sponsor exemptions, even winning the Buick Invitational in 2004. But he was also quietly losing enormous amounts of money gambling while drunk in casinos late at night. Through those middle years, Daly kept relying on special sponsor exemptions just to tee it up at all, and Callaway eventually tore up his contract for good after the relapses kept piling on top of each other. Then came 2008. Butch Harmon walked away for good. Daly could not land a single top 10 finish the entire year. Police found him passed out drunk outside a Hooters restaurant, and his booking mugshot spread everywhere within hours on every sports page and every late-night broadcast. It was by almost any honest measure rock bottom for a former major champion, the lowest point of a career that had once looked unstoppable. A few years later, he had gastric band surgery, dropped over 100 pounds, and swapped alcohol for nearly 30 Diet Cokes a day just to cope with the cravings that never fully went away. He found a strange kind of stability, even if it looked unusual from the outside looking in, and it let him step back onto a golf course at all. Today, Daly plays on the Champions Tour, where he even won the Insperity Invitational back in 2017, proving that flashes of that old magic never fully disappeared. He still smokes and still drinks in public sometimes, and in 2020 he was diagnosed with bladder cancer on top of everything else his body had already been through over the decades. He keeps playing anyway, because it is genuinely the only life he has ever fully known, and walking away from golf entirely was never really an option for a man like him. So what do all 7 of these legends, each one a giant of the sport in his own right, really tell us when you put their stories side by side? Tiger saw a talent so massive that it quietly removed the need for real discipline. Harmon and Palmer saw a man who refused to fully accept responsibility for his own choices, again and again. Zoeller and Couples saw both the dark, uncomfortable humor and the very real physical damage happening up close, week after week. Faldo and Nicklaus saw a mind that used alcohol as a shield and a crutch at exactly the same time, for exactly the same reasons. People still love John Daly today, and they always will, no matter what. They love him because he was real, because he was powerful, because he was funny, and because there has genuinely never been anyone else quite like him in this entire sport. He gave golf moments nobody will ever forget. From that 9th alternate miracle in 1991, all the way to that playoff win at St. Andrews in 1995. But his story was never only about what he won along the way. It is also about everything he quietly lost by never fully matching that once-in-a-generation talent with the discipline it truly deserved. 7 legends watched him closely, from every possible angle. And none of them landed on the simple idea that he was just lazy or careless. They saw a brilliant, wounded man fighting something far bigger than golf, using the only tools he had, even when those tools were slowly working against him. He survived when the odds genuinely said he might not. And that alone is worth honestly celebrating today. Just do not ever mistake his long survival for a simple, easy, happy ending. It is closer to a warning, wrapped up inside one of the most unforgettable careers golf has ever seen. A reminder that talent alone was never going to be enough to save him from himself.